Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of BCS Community Connections. And today on the podcast, I have Mrs. Louella Leblanc.
Hello.
I said it right there?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I said it right for the Texas version of it. What's the actual?
So my husband is from southern Louisiana, New Iberia, Louisiana, and it's Leblanc.
Leblanc.
No C.
I told her I would totally butcher that when I came on here if I tried
okay.
to say it that way. But I know that there's probably some people from Louisiana, like Tap out there, is probably listening and going, man, you're totally saying that wrong, Will. So anyway, Louella is joining us today to talk about her business, and her business is L Glamour Goat Company. That's a lot of words in there.
It is.
And it's kind of funny, before you walked in today, you didn't even know this, and I didn't tell you. We were sitting there, and I go, I'm pretty sure nobody else has taken this name.
No.
L Glamour Goat Company.
Would you like to know why?
Well,
we're
going to talk about it.
All right.
But so the L, I'm going to assume is initials. Mm-hmm. Okay. Louella.
Louise
Leblanc. All right. And then, I mean, we're getting ready to talk about why there's a goat in your.
Right.
Now, let's talk about why Glamour is in there.
So, our ranch is L Ranch.
Okay.
And that is named after me. My husband gave me that ranch
Man,
name.
look at that.
I know. And so my daughter actually named the company.
Nice.
She is
that makes perfect sense.
She is the one that named it.
How old's your daughter?
She is now 16.
Okay.
But at the time, she was, 2017. So she was about 12 when we officially.
Listen, I got a 10-year-old, and it's amazing what the vernacular of the age range is right now.
Right.
Glamour probably is one of those ones that falls in there. So what we want to do is we want to talk about your business, but first we want to talk about you, kind of talk about your background, your history a little bit. So want to talk about where you're from, where you grew up, what brought you to the area. I say Bryan College Station area, but you're a little bit outside of that range. So I want to talk about kind of where you grew up and then what brought you here, and then we'll kind of get into your business a little bit and talk about it.
Okay. So I was actually born in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Ooh,
Northerner. My parents moved to California.
Oh, okay.
To Central California when I was 2. I had a lot of respiratory issues and did not do well in the Minnesota weather. So they decided to go hit California, Central California. So I actually grew up in Fresno area.
Okay.
Fresno, I graduated from Clovis High School. Met my husband there.
Wow, okay.
He was I&I duty in Fresno, had a Hawk missile. Have you ever heard of the Hawk missiles before? So it was a reserve unit, 4th Land Battalion in Fresno, California, and he was active duty, Marine that was there. And so we met and got married and got transferred to 29 Palms, California, which is near Palm Springs.
Okay.
It's a big Marine base there. So we were there, kind of went from there down up to Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
We were stationed there in San Clemente. San Onofre is a section of Camp Pendleton. We were stationed there for a number of years. Went back to 29 Palms. He was an instructor in the Marine Corps. And so between deployments, he was an instructor. And so he kind of got in that funnel of, that was going to be his career plan as far as the Marine Corps was concerned, is that you are an instructor, you get deployed, you go back to being an instructor. And so we did not want 29 Palms to be
your base.
our base of where we were going to live. So we have, had our boys, we have a daughter, and we decided that it was time to head out.
Okay.
So he was offered a job in being electronics background. He was offered a job with a company called Global Crossing, which they're no longer that, but to Houston.
Okay.
We would travel to Louisiana to visit family, and we kind of had Houston eyeballed or Kingwood, and we decided on the Houston area, and we ended up moving up to the Woodlands.
Okay.
And that's where we lived from 1999 to 2015.
I was going to say, because the Woodlands probably at that time in 1999, it's kind of like a lot of places, like little suburb areas or true suburbs.
Right.
Now you can't tell what's a suburb and what's not. It's
Right.
like all grown together.
Right.
Woodlands is definitely one of those areas
Right.
as well, too.
At that time, the Woodlands Parkway did not even go past Kirkendall. It was woods.
Yeah.
So we were
The literal Woodlands at that
right,
point. Yeah.
right.
And
It
with
was
your one road that runs
it was
up.
one road,
Yeah.
and so we lived there till 2015.
Okay.
And he got a project management. He went back to, I actually went to school and he went to school. We both had not finished our college education, and he went to U of H and got his project management degree. And I went, at the time it was called Montgomery College in the Woodlands, and I became a physical therapist assistant.
Okay.
So I worked in the community, and he was working, doing his career also. And we...
Now, was he still, he wasn't active at that time?
No,
Yeah.
he got out. He got out at 12 years. He was a staff sergeant.
Gotcha. Okay.
He was ready to re-up at that time in 1999, and his mother came down with cancer. And so we kind of decided that it was probably a good time to and we didn't like the direction things were going with, moving. And I was in school at the time, and it was just kind of, really nothing settled.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough to be a military spouse because
Right.
you're at the mercy of
Right.
the military,
Right.
right? I
Right.
mean, you're sitting there like,
You
wait a
sign
minute.
up,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I'm like, hey, my spouse is over here trying to finish classes. Or like, and your point is,
My
like,
husband always said they didn't issue me a wife.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. It is the truth.
This is true. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah, we've got a lot of friends that are in the military, and it's tough to be a military spouse. I
Right.
mean, just in general, for the draw that it takes on families, just in general. I mean, even if you're not deployed, you are on call to what the mission is, right?
Right.
And that mission can always look different or whatever. And so spouses are the ones that usually bear the burden of all of that. They kind of hold it all down on the backside while everything's going on the other side of that. So once he was out, he goes and he furthers his education.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden he's doing more civil service work. No civil service work. He was true
Companies.
private,
Yeah.
private sector at that point.
Right.
And so you guys then kind of start your careers out from there, and then let's move forward a little bit and talk about at this point wasn't necessarily a business plan for you.
No.
This was more, so when we talk about Triple L kind of moving towards becoming a business, it really didn't start even as an idea for a business. Is that
No.
right?
Yeah, no.
So that's kind of where I'm going to lead into the history of this. Is you kind of started dabbling in this how?
So in 2015, we moved to our place in Grimes County. Our daughter has suffered from eczema, and she actually has asthma and eczema since 18 months old through 10 years old, severe eczema. Lots of, we're doing the whole dermatologists and allergists and doing that whole, scene with all the medications,
Sure.
medicated,
Steroids.
food, steroids.
Yeah.
So like I was talking earlier with you is, so she moved from a school where she grew up there knowing everybody, grew
Right.
up her whole, little, kindergarten through 4th grade. And then we moved where she started school in Anderson Shiro. And so here's a new kid with, cracked, bloody arms, it just really cannot control it,
Sure.
And so you saw her self-confidence kind of diminish and just really self-conscious about what's going on, and so what do you do as a parent? You're just like, okay, we've tried everything under the book. I've spent, I can't even tell you how much money, on all the medications that you're supposed to do, changing things, detergents, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
Done it. So I got my little first goat on a whim, and then just kind of just researching what's going on with her and just really diving into goat milk, the benefits of goat milk, especially for the skin, and just kind of really researching not only goat milk, but different essential oils and butters, and that would enhance the benefits.
Well, and were you finding, I guess, by going to the doctors and stuff, were there triggers or things that were dietary triggers that kind of would flare up?
Dietary anxiety.
Yeah.
Here we're going into a new school.
Sure.
People she doesn't know,
Yeah.
So anxiety was triggering it. We're in a new environment too.
Right.
In the woodlands, we dealt with all the heavy pine, and now I'm up here, and Grimes County is mostly, we're seeing a lot of oak, and different just environment,
Sure.
environmental triggers. So that was part of it, is just kind of going, don't scratch. You can only do so much, and you open, unfortunately, she a few times even had to deal with staph infections because of that, the open areas. So just kind of seeing, that going on, it's just like, there's got to be another way.
Well, and as a parent, it's got to be frustrating. It's got to be draining. There's this range of emotions that you're kind of pulled in through this with her, where, you were saying it earlier, like when she's going through school, K through 4, there's kind of this acceptance level, kids are not as judgmental, they're a lot more, it's really kind of a weird concept, but it's like the younger they are, the more the blinders are just, completely narrowed down to here. They don't see all of this other stuff that goes with it. Not only does she lose the ability to kind of change schools and move up a grade with her friends that she's already affiliated with in that level, she moves completely, and now she's in a brand new complete grade with nobody that she knows.
Right.
And so the history of everything that she kind of gone through with her friends and things over at this other school are gone. Now she's entering into a whole other little range of, like you said, the anxiety of new school, new people, new teachers, new everything. And if that's a trigger point, the environment's a trigger point. It's almost, for you, it's probably like a perfect storm during that change, even though you've been dealing with it since she was a baby.
Right.
And so as a parent, you want to sit there and say, I'll do whatever, like take her to the doctors, I'll do all of this other stuff. But then also we were kind of discussing, I was telling you kind of in my family a little bit, how when you start visiting with some of the dermatologists and things like that, and allergists and all these other things, it's not like they all mesh. Like this one says something over here, this one says something over here, this one offers a treatment over here, this one says, no, don't do this treatment, you should be doing this treatment. And then they put them on a treatment, but then it's a treatment that, well, we don't want to run them for a long period of time on this. I was telling you about like Accutane and things like that, where you don't want them long-term dependent upon this particular deal. Steroids is probably another version of that. While it may initially help the flare, it's not something long-term that you just want somebody to be on for the rest of their life. You want to try and work that kind of in and out as a part of the process and diagnosis, plus the frustration of there's not one thing that works. No. Right? And so I got to rewind to this goat. So you bought the goat, then you researched, bought the goat.
I got the goat first.
Okay. And so the goat is what type of goat?
Probably, he's a Nigerian dwarf.
Okay.
And a lot of my customers at the local will recognize the donkey with our donkey Jenny, or she's a Jenny. Her name's Margarita.
Okay.
With my Austin on top, standing on top of her. And this is an actual picture.
Yeah, your first goat.
Yes, my first goat. So I got him when he was 3 days old.
Okay.
He was a bottle baby.
Right.
And we got him right after we moved out to our place. And so he was cute and blue-eyed. And
purchase was with the intent of
just having a cute
goat.
Well, it's a male goat, so obviously I wasn't milking him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of like.
He was just cute, and I could have him. And you know what I mean? We were in a place where we could have him.
Yeah, I was telling you the infatuation that my daughter has with miniature goats, right? And like, so I get it. I totally understand. Where you're going from.
My husband's still. We're at this auction, and I'm bidding against myself, and he's like, "Quit, put your hand down. Nobody's bidding on this goat, And that was me. I was that person.
Yeah.
So
had to have it.
Had to have them, yes. And so, but shortly after I got my first nanny, and she, and from then on. But just researching though was the big thing, because I was just frustrated. I mean, we had drawers full of medications, and it's exhausting.
Were you also using, outside of like the medication and stuff, my assumption is also going to be that you were using or trying to try like other therapeutic products that other people maybe were manufacturing that weren't. I'm trying to kind of vision, if this is my daughter, I don't want to go full blown like chemical warfare on her skin or whatever. I'm trying to kind of manage that piece of it. And there's also people that are out there that are trying to sell their products as, certain therapy for this or exfoliant or whatever the case may be.
So as far as like somebody like myself that, local, no, I hadn't tried any of my stuff. It was more commercial, like Aveeno or,
over the counter therapeutics, things like that.
Okay. More natural lotions, getting away from the perfumes of things. Yeah. No, trying to really, bedding, clothing, everything, just trying to get all the perfumes and all that out.
And you don't have 100% roadmap as to what all the triggers were.
No,
even having it from 18 months on, a weird part of this, like my wife changed our detergent one time and changed it to Tide. And I've never itched so bad in my life. Right. And we literally did one load, and my skin's not typically sensitive to anything, but just whatever was in the detergent at that one point was just like, had me like on fire. Right. And I was like, and I couldn't, but again, I'm thinking in your shoes, like I couldn't put it together either. And then I'm like, what happened? Like, why am I so itchy? And then I realized like we changed this and we immediately went back. And so some of that I think is, as a parent that you're fighting it, you're trying to stamp out a fire over here. Like, okay, if I can figure out what this is, then maybe I don't use this anymore. I can put this in the routine. And then as other things kind of appear, what have I done different? I mean, are you keeping like mental logs or changes of what you're using? Like, we're going to try this, see how this works. Yes or no?
Right.
Move that one out, move something else in.
I was, but, and a lot of people might not know this, that my daughter has asthma also, but eczema can be a precursor to asthma.
Interesting.
And so she actually had a full-blown asthma attack, went into respiratory distress at daycare, and she spent 5 days at Texas Children's in the Woodlands. She was about 2 years old. And so that was also, now we're managing the asthma aspect of this whole thing, which very, very volatile asthma. So I had the eczema and the asthma going and trying to clean everything out. She had a fantastic pediatrician, and a family friend was her nurse.
Gotcha.
For her doctor. So that was really good to kind of get us where, trying to clean things out, trying to get away from, you're still buying, over the counter, obviously it was, but trying to keep it more pure, more natural as you can over the counter. Yeah,
dye-frees.
Right.
Even in some cases, I would imagine like scents probably are. Yeah.
Yeah. No dyes, no scents.
Smells great. Itches like crazy.
Yeah, and it's hard because she's a girly girl and wanted to do all, makeup, and her friends were doing all the, all the little dress up stuff. And it's like, okay, now tomorrow we're going to have a problem. Yeah. Because you're going to be flared up. Yeah. And that's what even, people, bath bombs and things like that would just, she loves them. Sure. The little toys in the bathtub, they're cool, but boy, that was a nightmare on her skin, and you just couldn't do it,
So Austin comes into the picture, you get a nanny goat, and now all of a sudden you're like, let's see what is somewhat, not necessarily the science, because you can go on the internet and go down a rabbit hole and find out
how to make.
Oh yeah, I joked around on here at one point, like if you stay on the internet for too long, you'll think the earth is flat and all this other stuff. But you decide that you're going to go to the internet and start kind of researching the goat milk side of products.
Right.
Did that start as just like it was going to be dietary, as like kind of introducing it more as dietary first, or was it something that as you started looking at it going, how easy is this to make? How hard is this to make?
I just started kind of piecing. I guess that's what all my soaps and lotions have, all the same base ingredients. It's just whatever essential oil,
Right.
or I may do exfoliant in it, like oatmeal. So but their bases are the same, so it's really consistent.
Right.
And so I started researching how to. I just hit that. How to, what kind of would work together.
Gotcha.
For sensitive skin,
Okay.
so I use grapeseed extract, shea butter, coconut oil, olive oil, things like that, and kind of developing a recipe for the soap and for the lotion base without anything in it, and then building it from there.
Okay.
So that's what I did, and then I just started making it for my family, and I started seeing, hey, this is working. This is working for her. We were the guinea pigs, so just
Try
really
this.
try, so, I spent about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Just with our family. I was handing out as gifts, people were saying, hey, can I try this? And just kind of sharing and kind of getting feedback,
Well, and so you have true life happening right in front of you with your daughter.
Right.
And then you start thinking like, hey, if it did this for her, what could it do for other people as well too?
Right.
Start kind of testing that out a little bit and giving people, I'm assuming people, your close friends and things like that also saw those changes as well too.
Right.
They're probably hearing from you like, you're not going to believe, like, look at this versus what you've seen in the past when you've come over here.
Right.
What was your daughter's reaction in all of this?
She was happy. It's kind of, because it got old. You have to send all these prescriptions, you have to get the little notes for the nurse to be able to apply it, things like that. And she, granted, this is my family, and I'm not a doctor, obviously, but it worked at my house what we were doing, and I see it working for other, for my customers, and so she's happy, and her skin's cleared up, and we're not using anything.
What was really interesting, I was telling you in pre-show that doing research before we sat down here at the table, I didn't really realize that like goat's milk, pH balance wise, is about as close as you can get to the pH balance of human skin. Yeah.
Yep.
And that natural ability for it to be able to carry that pH level then interacts in a way that's not harsh. It's not, it's not working against what your natural skin is trying to do for you on a day in, day out basis. Even if you're compromised in the sense of having a skin disorder or something that you're treating externally, this is kind of the ability to go, okay, I don't have to worry about harsh scents, harsh chemicals. I'm controlling everything that's going in there. Like in my head, I know every single thing that went into this batch to create this lotion or this soap. And now that we've been using it for X number of days, X number of weeks, you start seeing this starting to clear up. Now, the other part of that is there are other pieces, there are other materials in goat milk. We're talking about like the fat content, right?
Right.
That comparatively goat milk as opposed to cow's milk, or which obviously is the most common, but goat's milk has a higher percentage of fat in it.
It does.
Okay.
It does. A Nigerian dwarf actually is the breed is actually the highest.
The smallest has the highest.
Right.
Here.
Small. When you'll find with the lotions and the soaps, they're extra creamy and extra. You get the milk itself is just crazy. You know. So yeah, the fat content, and I've kind of just kind of side note, just kind of, it's already high, but I've also tried to tap in. I just bought a herd sire this last spring, and comes from a very, a milking fat, breeding ground, background. So I'm hoping to introduce even more of that into.
Is there specific dietary deals that you have to use with the goats in order to maintain that or to ensure that the consistency is there?
So this is a thing with, and I pride myself on, is that I try to raise our goats as natural as possible. We live on a 42-acre ranch. They graze, so grass-fed. I don't pesticide my pastures or native pastures, and very high quality dairy goat feed that we feed. We have a blend, and that's just given at night. Thankfully, our weather is good enough that we can stay, pasture-wise, pretty much the whole year.
Yeah.
They're maybe on hay, alfalfa hay, just a couple months, if that.
Yeah.
I don't minimize antibiotics only when necessary. Worming is just being really proactive on how we rotate our stock. So I keep away from having to worm. I know what's in my milk.
Yeah. You have the control over it.
I have the control of raising, I raise the goats, so I know what I'm giving the goats.
Right.
And, I'm a huge animal lover. I laugh with my vet because I'm my own rescue group. As
Austin will vouch for.
Yes. So, and one of the things that I dam raise all my kids. So I'm not pulling my kids, and that's something that's very common in the goat milk industry and the cow industry, is pulling the calves or the kids from the dams and just milking and getting.
Yeah.
So I dam raise all my goats. They get weaned about 8 weeks old. I only breed in the spring, selective breed. I don't need 50 million gallons of milk. I have, ample supply, thank goodness. And so, we breed. You have to breed to have kids to get milk.
Sure.
So we do breed. But I also sell my kids to loving homes. I make sure that they're going. I always, I have many customers that have bought goats from me.
Yeah.
So
I was asking you earlier, I said, how many goats do you have? And you kind of sheepishly looked at me. It's like, I've got 17, right?
I have 17 kids.
Oh.
We have actually 30. We're up to 36.
Oh, see, I missed that part of our conversation. I'm thinking this whole time you've got 17.
No, we have had, I just had numbers 15, 16, 17 yesterday.
So, and I'm going to work all this back around so we can talk about the starting of the business here. But so you've got, as you're going through and you're producing milk from your goat, we'll call it the goat farm, right? As you're going through and you're producing that, is there a stability with what it is that you milk? Like, will it hold for a certain longer period of time, or like once you take that in, do you have a certain amount of time that you got to then convert that over?
I do. So my lotions are paraben, alcohol, and formaldehyde free, and I use a mild preservative. So shelf life on my lotions, 2 to 4 months. Okay. And so it's all, all on there. So, soap, I cold process, and that milk actually I freeze.
Okay.
Because of the process that I use lye, and I do when I am producing that, it actually is better that the milk be frozen. It controls the temperature a little bit better because it can burn the milk and ruin your batch of soap. So, and with my cold processing, it's 6 weeks. I cure my soaps at least 6 weeks. So that time is used, on the curing racks. You produce the milk, you're making the soap, I pour my molds, and then they sit, and you wait. And then I can, sell from there. So it's a slower process. It makes a harder soap.
Right. So we have some friends who made soap in the past. I think most people are under the perception like you can just go from like here to soap, right? Like there's not this long period in between. I was amazed to find out, again, that curing process, that it has to sit before it's ready to be cut and blocked up and everything else and then repackaged in their particular situation. Again, was about 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
So then it was always the idea, like the soap that she created was incredible. I mean, we and again, it's kind of an all natural, essential oils based, and it'd be like, man, I need more of that. And she's like, So I've sold a whole lot of soap, and it's going to be a little bit like, I've got some that's curing right now. It'll be ready in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you just don't think about that concept. For most people who if you're coming off of commercial soap,
right,
and you go to something that is organic, that's kind of where we'll toss that hat in the ring with, I guess, and that is all natural. Now all of a sudden, the processes behind that looks a lot different. You're not mass producing this.
right.
You're trying. I think to an extent, from what I'm hearing from you, is you're trying to control quality by also controlling quantity. Like there's such a thing as overproducing, and time starts ticking. If you pop out 500 bottles of lotion, and you
right.
know that it's got X shelf life on
right.
there, well, you want to make sure that I don't want this stuff sitting around in my house, and by the time I've gotten to these bottles to sell, I've lost a month and a half or 2 months of date time off
right.
of there.
Right.
So it's also then learning what my turnaround time is for supply and demand.
Right.
That I keep enough that I can have the supplies that I need to produce it, but the demand may go up or down based on events, time of years, seasonalities.
Right.
I would imagine probably, and again, I'm thinking in terms of retail, working retail for all of those years, we would see increases in lotion sales happen during the fall and then into the winter,
right.
where your skin naturally is the most dry. And where naturally, the weather is changing depending on what part of the country you live in.
Right.
Fall for us sometimes feels like summer as well too. But the idea is that there's probably going to be a tick up or an increase on that. So you've worked this product with your daughter. You've started giving some of this stuff to your friends so that they can use it. You're now you're receiving feedback from those folks that you're kind of giving this to. Yeah. And what is the feedback that you're getting?
You need to sell this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. You just kind of, you don't know. I had, just given it to people. I hadn't done a market. I hadn't, is there 5 million people selling the same thing? Which there's a lot of soap vendors, you know? What makes you different from everybody else?
Right.
And so that's kind of where I was at. But lots of encouragement from friends and family. And so I started my LLC, So
daughter names the company.
She did.
And you start.
She actually made the original logo also.
All right.
She's an artist.
Okay. I love my daughter to death. She drew a picture the other day. She's like, I'm gonna paint a picture that I want you to sell for me so I can make some money. I was like, okay. So I'd go to work, I'd come home, and there's a little, I think I talked about this, and it might have been with Beth Simons. We were talking about, I come home and she's got this little, laid out canvas that she's drawn on, and I'm like, what is that? It's just, Daddy, hello, it's an ostrich. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's an ostrich, So, yeah, it would definitely, if my daughter had designed a logo, it would be abstract for sure. So you've decided you're going to jump off into this. Uh-huh. Where do you start? Because you've obviously got friends. You can have word of mouth there by letting them, try it. But where's your step off point on this? Is it farmers markets? Is it little stores? Is it you set up a table at certain events?
So I think probably the first market I did, it was, spring, actually more summer. I found out that they have a little farmers market in Huntsville. Okay. In the parking lot. It was like $5 for as many markets as you want to go to, and so I did that. And then I think my first really market was at the local here in Bryan. Okay. And I was there when it started. When we were back in the parking lot, and it was rows. I don't know if you ever went to that market. And it was god awful hot. Yeah. And we were lined up and so we were all lined up in the parking lot, and that's really my first full-on markets.
What's interesting about those places, especially like local farmers markets and stuff, is they tend to be frequented by the same people every week, and they notice when somebody's new or when something changes or a new product line comes out because they've constantly look at this first table, or maybe they're purchasing from them or whatever. So you set up that first time? Is it that idea like people are coming up to you like, oh, I've never
look
heard
at you.
of
Yeah,
you. And
yeah.
then they see the name and they're like, wait a minute. Triple L Glamour Goat Company.
And it was, if it wasn't warm, it was okay. But people pretty much were sweating and just trying to make a quick run.
Yeah.
It was just so hot on the gravel. So, so I set up there, and that's kind of where you're saying, when I first started, it was like, oh, I can make this lotion. I make 50 million different types of lotion, But in reality, it can't keep, know? And so, just trying to find out, what's my top sellers? What am I going to, troubleshooting that in my head and justifying, of course I can always, lotion is huge for my company. It's what I'm probably best known for is my lotions.
Yeah.
And so, and it's something that I can produce, and I produce pretty easy, just need a few days, if that.
Yeah, there's not this cure time.
There's not
like
a cure time on it. So that is something where then I can specialize and do, if I have a special request or anything like that, I can do that. Where, soap, I don't know if you checked back, but I make over 30 different varieties of soap to include shampoo bars, which has become very popular, especially here at the local with my customers.
Yeah.
The college students are, they're loving it because it's easy.
Yeah.
It's economical. It's long lasting. And especially for, if you have dandruff issues, eczema, psoriasis customers, I produce 4 different shampoo bars, and they love them, and they work.
Scenting out product, like getting the scents, are you taking most of those and creating like scents on your lotion through essential oils? Is kind of how you scent those products out, because you want to ensure again that your goal is to still keep chemicals out of it,
right.
Keep it all natural, ingredients that are high quality ingredients that you're controlling. How long did it take you to perfect your recipe, I guess? Like, you go through batches, and I kind of understand, like, your daughter's kind of your guinea pig at this point, right? And then you start, hey, this worked really well on my daughter, and then I gave a few of these to friends. How many more times are you going back to the drawing board of, like, if I put a little bit more of this or a little less of this in there to
So it's all ratios of the oils. They all interplay. Even your essential oil can throw your whole recipe off.
Yeah.
Because of the content. Lemongrass is the essential oil that can give you problems, Sandalwood essential oil is another one.
I'm going to imagine as well, too, your supplier for essential oils probably makes a difference as well, too.
It does. So I actually get all my essential oils. It's a fair trade company. There's no animal testing. It's independently tested when they source and when they sell. And it's Essential Depot, that's all they do is cater to businesses.
Yeah.
Candle makers, soap makers, lotion makers, and that's, they're able to provide. When I make a batch of soap, a large batch of soap, I'm getting, about 37 bars. I'm using 4 ounces of essential oil. You can't get that from a lot of the chained commercial. They're selling you the little cute, $500 bottle of
I'm going to have to pop this top off and pour this whole thing in.
I know.
Here.
They just don't make that. Yeah. They don't make 4 ounce, and I wanted something that had really high quality.
Yeah.
And they back it up.
Well, and one of the things that we were talking about pre-show as well, too, is your goal in creating this product is to create affordable products.
Right.
Which, I was talking about the friend that we have that makes soap. Love the soap, don't care for the price. Yeah. Because the price is sometimes passed along because of materials being used, because it's organic, and really it's at the discretion of the creator on how much profitability they want in that.
Right.
And so there's that little part in me, that looks at it and goes, man, I can get, for what I'm paying for this 1 bar of soap, I can get 6 bars of soap over here, right. And it may not be as good for me, and it definitely won't feel as good, and it doesn't smell as good or whatever. And, but also, when you start, the thing that we noticed as well too is the ratio of usage. So like as we get homemade bar soap, as opposed to what you're pulling off of the shelf at a H-E-B, Walmart, or whatever, one of your name brand, been around forever soap companies, is those bars of soap are gone like that. I mean, you're using it's like, and I'm throwing it away. I'm throwing it away, a little sliver of it after whatever, a month maybe, if I'm lucky. And then you get into when somebody is creating organic soap, usually the density of it is a lot different. And so as you're working through that piece, you notice that bar lasts a lot longer. It still doesn't come out like in the wash. If you really look at it at the purpose of what am I paying versus how long I'm using it, you're probably not going to make those balance out. You're really trying to make it balance out on the side of how is this product for me personally? Like I'm running chemical free over here. I don't have to worry about it irritating my skin, and I get the best quality product over here. Your goal though wasn't to pass along a huge profit into your pocket. You knew that what you were creating was potentially going to be big in helping other families in the same situations, other people with the same skin problems, or you were getting feedback from friends who were talking about what it was doing for their skin. And now all of a sudden, do you feel like an obligation kind of to that a little bit, where you're kind of sitting out there like, I know I could probably sell my product for more than I'm selling it for, but I want it to be available to as many people as possible, that it's not like, hey, bust out your savings account because I'm going to take some of that money too.
No, I feel like if it's affordable, you're going to keep coming back.
Right.
If it's working, you're going to still keep coming back. I have many times have had young families that, they got 3-4 kids.
Sure.
And you can tell, kind of budgeted. They have to budget. They're budgeting. And they come up and they're like, man, $6, or whatever, I don't know. Okay, why don't you try a sample? Because I make samples quite often.
Right.
Excess, I can't make a full bar, but I can make.
Here's what's left. And
I'm utilizing that for that same reason. Yeah. And so, give them a sample, and they're coming back because, hey, it's worked. Yeah.
Well, every place I've ever been, every lotion place I've ever been that sells a lotion has a sampler bottle out there, right? And so while it's not necessarily, while your lotion is creating this change in people's skin, it may not necessarily be right there on the spot, but when you're using it, if you use lotion regularly, which I don't, my wife does, but she will sit there and she pumps something out and she's like, something different about this. Like she'll be able to feel the difference in just how it makes her skin feel right out of the gate. Right. And that's typically the drawback. So there's two things really in her, I guess it's in her avenue of deciding on whether or not this is something she wants to try. The first one is that kind of instant feel of using it. Is it greasy? Right. Does it absorb well? How does it make my skin feel? And then the second one is always scent. Right. Like, this smells like trash. I don't want this. Or like, this smells really good, And so I would think the other part for you is as you're now seeing a demand for your product, and then you're going, okay, and I think I heard you touch on this a little bit. You were saying, like, I'm going to make this scent, and I'm going to make this scent, and I'm going to make these, and this color, or whatever. And now all of a sudden, you get, how many bars of soap did you say you had at one time?
I make 30 different bars of soap. Okay. I will not always have them out on the table. Right. But I do make 30 different. We tried to... I have unscented. I have milk and honey, honey and oats. I mean, basic to which I shared with you today is my Cowboy Up, which is a fragrance. I had to get to that mindset. It took me a little while, but not everybody wants essential oils. Right. They want something that smells good, but it's good for their skin. Sure. So, I had to add fragrance in there, just fragrant scents, just to appeal to the husband's there, or hey, I want to buy it from my, husband. Yeah,
man, don't bring me no lavender bar soap or anything along those lines. So
I had to do that part of it. Yeah. But, I do have fragrances, and I tell people that, I do have fragrance scents, and I do have, we have a garden. I've utilized, cucumbers and mint and things from our garden into my soaps. Dewberries from our property. I make a soap that utilizing those. It's a beer and dewberry soap. So some unique things. Beer is fantastic for your skin. Man. So it's
kind of hot outside. I'm starting to get a little parched over here.
So doing dewberry and beer. I can't even talk now. But yeah, so you have to appeal to what your customers are asking for, in that part of it.
What do you think your baseline is for women to men? 95 to 5?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I do have some avid men shoppers, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, just in general, I mean, I'm not the avid soap picker. I may pick my shampoo. That might be about as deep as I get into it, and then if my wife kind of tries something. Now, my wife is the first one to be sitting there going, you got to try this, and she's throwing a bar of soap at me or whatever. Yeah. But with our friends that made the bar soap, it started with a sample. Yeah. It started at first, because I think the bar soap that she was selling was like $9. Yeah. And I was like, wow. That's I'm looking at like, that's a big investment for a bar of soap, but then I took it home and I'm like, this lasts a lot longer than any bar of soap that I've had. Right. But then I'm also sitting there going, this actually smells pretty good. Yeah. The essentials and everything else that's built off in there. And so I'm thinking in your world, it's kind of the same deal. Like if you can't hook them with a sample, at least if maybe you get them with the first sale, the second's not that difficult because your product is quality enough and is going to probably produce that repeat sale 75% of the time. I mean, some people may just be trying it just to try it, and they, the one part about a guy is you can go in my shower at any given time, and I have one type of soap, one type of shampoo. You can look over at my wife's stuff. She got 4 shampoos. She got another, 6 soaps that she's using, and it's, this is my, if I'm doing this soap, this is my after I work out soap, I mean, so I think women are more adept to trying different things. And a guy kind of gets into the deal like, and I'm generalizing here. I mean, but for me, it's like, does it clean my body? Does it smell okay? I think we're good to go. Yeah. I don't, at the end of all of it. Now, I have had some soaps that I've taken, and when I get done, especially the ones name brand, cheaper, with chemicals in it, and I get done, and I can literally like scratch my name on my skin.
I did dry out.
Yeah. I mean, it smelled good. Yeah. When I was done, I was like, man, it smells pretty good. Then I get done, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm kind of itchy. And I'm not itchy from having a skin problem. It's just that the chemicals that are in there are drying out my skin. They're not nourishing it. And I'm kind of sitting over there like, well, I got to tough this out. I got seven more bars in there that I got to get through, And
that's the same with lotions. They add a lot of alcohol, a lot of preservatives in them, and that's what keeps you coming back because it's drying your skin out. Yeah. And so that's always something to look at. People, I always thought, hey, goat milk lotion, it's all the same. It's not all the same, right? And just like soaps, we talked about, I cold process my soap and allow curing. There's many vendors and people that sell soaps. It's a process called hot process. So it's kind of pushes it through the curing process, speeds it up. So you're looking at 2 weeks, not 6 to 8 weeks. Sure. So that's that's the difference on some of the soap makers, that come around. So it's just, but those are things that people, I didn't think about these kind of things before I got started. Yeah. How's that really made? And I know I got, especially during, COVID times here, I got a lot of texts and emails from folks, and they're at home, and you got time to research things and looking at like, I'm going to clean my house out with all this stuff going on, like going more natural on some things, and taking that time. Well,
what I'm amazed to see is like when you go down the soap aisle at your local grocery-atorium, right? And it used to be that vendors paid for space, right? Like if I'm over here and let's say Johnson & Johnson created this line of stuff, they paid Walmart to be in this square footage or to have this many facings of product and everything else. What you're starting to see today is a reversal of that. You're starting to see a shrink down of some of the major brands, and you're starting to see 4-foot cut-ins, 8-foot cut-ins of local vendors or smaller business vendors that are in a certain line, an avenue. Maybe it is that it's, organic, scent-free, all natural. They're getting into like this line of products that you're starting to see pop in a lot more regularly. And they stand out because they're also not packaged just, they're not packaged on a major production line where all of it looks the same.
Right.
Somebody's created a logo that their daughter has drawn or whatever,
right,
and put it on the deal. It looks like somebody took the time and effort to package this out for their customer individually, which in a lot of cases for a lot of these small businesses is the case. I mean, you're not creating your stuff and then sending it off for packaging. You're doing all of it.
Yeah, we package everything.
Yeah, so from start to finish, it never leaves really your site.
No.
And so you have quality control from start to finish. And so, again, as you produce these deals, and I want to touch base back on this because we talked about the pH level for goat milk, but the other things that's tied in with that as well, too, the antioxidants, it's a natural exfoliant.
Lactic acid.
Lactic acid.
So it sheds away dead skin cells, even out skin tone. So that's where blemishes, acne, the eczema issues, psoriasis, things like that.
Little discoloration, sunspot discoloration.
It helps people see a change using a goat milk based product.
Yeah. What else have I left out? There's something else.
Natural occurring vitamins.
Okay.
That's in the milk. It's we're not adding, adding those things, high in fat.
Yeah.
So it holds in moisture. The pH helps with that. It's really, there's such a difference.
And for you were talking earlier about, like, when we were talking about the fat that's in there, it's a butter fat base that's in that milk.
Right.
One of the highest content of any milk that you're going to be able to produce.
Higher than the big Nubian, which are the traditional milking goats that you see, goat milking goats, very large goat milking goats.
So as you put this into the market and you're hitting up like the little, whether it's the local farmers markets, the little vendor stands that you've got, now all of a sudden you're getting a little bit of traction on that. You're getting people who are interested in repeat business with you. Is that also how you found some of the collaboration sites that you were able to put your product into other storefronts?
Yes.
Okay.
So, of course, I was at the local. I do business in Montgomery, historic Montgomery, and I'm in a store there. And she actually started out as my market manager, running a market. She wanted to run a market. It's Montgomery Sip and Stroll, so it's on a weekday, Thursday evening. She wanted to have local handmade, local vendors.
Right.
And so that's that market. And ended up being in her store. She has an area, it's called Montgomery Mercantile, and that's all she has in there, are to include meat, a local grass-fed beef. She carries a lot of local product. So doing that, actually a customer really, I've been trying to find a really good spot for me to be in here in Bryan College Station. Of course, with COVID, everything was so crazy.
Yeah, sure.
But also where my products would probably be appreciated, people would want to seek out more.
Yeah.
So now I'm at Village Foods and Pharmacy.
Okay.
And so I'm there with those guys, and they're selling several of my different, unscented lotions and soaps. They have a nice selection. And that was actually a request of a customer who had moved from Navasota to Bryan. And she's having to kind of meet me. It didn't work out time-wise.
Right.
At the local. And a lot of folks, they like to order, but they don't like to order. They like to have their hands on it, you know, and a place to go to if they last minute want to grab something or they're out. So that worked out really well for me. So
the challenging part, I think, this is where my knowledge of corporate business as opposed to meeting up to local vendors kind of where the rubber meets the road here. A lot of the times in larger supermarkets, grocery stores, big chains, there are so many hoops that they're going to make that vendor jump through. Not just the idea, like it usually starts with kind of a quick like, hey, so I'm selling this, want to know if maybe you'd be interested in putting it in your store. And 30 years ago when I started with Walmart, there was a little bit of autonomy for store managers to be able to make some decisions like that and bring in some local vendors, get information and pass that up and get those things done pretty quickly. And then you start running into issues that changes corporate policy. Something comes in, the quality is maybe not as good as it appeared, or they have an incident that happens with that product, and now there's a lawsuit. And of course,
Right.
go in and sell a Frito-Lay chip and somebody choke on it, and they're like, okay, am I suing Frito-Lay or am I going to sue Walmart? Oh, I'm going to sue both of them. They both have big pockets. But in a local vendor stance, you can literally find yourself in a situation as a local vendor where what you think is the best thing for your business to be front and center in this very large environment actually becomes a bigger problem and a headache for most local vendors. I tell a story about, there was a local vendor here created excellent, and I'm talking excellent pieces of furniture at a very, very reasonable price. And we locked onto them when we were with Walmart, and we're like, listen, man, we got college kids that move in here. We could sell a bunch of this, and we're looking at the quality. The drawers are dovetailed off. It's fantastic. And he's telling us the prices on there, and we're like, dude, sign us up. We'll figure out how to get you in the stores. And so we get him into the store. We get him a vendor number, get him into the store. In his first round through the stores, he comes in and drops off 15, 20 pieces of furniture here, 15, 20 pieces of furniture here. Literally by the end of the day, they're gone.
Wow.
And then we're calling him like, we got to have more. And he's like, okay, well, that took me X number of days to produce these. Just give me a couple of days and I'll go back. And then he goes and produces double, brings it back in. Day and a half, it's gone. Now all of a sudden he's now gone out, bought a shop, has had to move his production location, get a bigger spot. He's envisioning like, man, I am going to be rich. Like I am selling so much stuff. Now I've got to have people to help me though. I can't do all this myself anymore. So he goes and hires 4 guys. Now he's bringing us a trailer of furniture and another trailer of furniture over to this other place. And we literally have move-in weekend for the dorms, and it's gone in 2 days. An entire trailer of furniture, literally lining an entire aisle all the way down to Walmart, is gone in 2 days. And we're calling back like, dude, you got to figure out, that pressure is just ramping and ramping and ramping. Now he's met with a crossroads. Whereas when he was producing it in the beginning and it was just him, you know where I'm going with this, but now all of a sudden his overhead's pretty small. He can manage it, but now he's got employees. Right. Now he's got a warehouse. Now he's got to go buy bigger tools and things to put together faster. And his growth happens so fast that it actually puts him out of business. He can no longer keep up. He can no longer produce enough without adding more bodies that he now no longer has the revenue. Because everything that's coming in is going out. Yeah, no, he's having to buy raw supplies and materials to create and produce everything. And so most people don't ever see the backside of that, and we feel bad because we knew how good the product was, but essentially without intention, we put him out of business by him getting too big too quick. But a lot of folks, you see these Shark Tank deals where somebody gets on there and they're like, man, if I could get here and I get here. But if you really listen to the in-betweens, the problem is always production. The problem is always like, for a few people, they'll say it's advertising it and things like that. But for the majority of them to get into a QVC line or something along those lines, that they've got to be able to ramp up production to create mass units to be able to keep up with demand. First time they hit the stores, it's that curiosity, like, hey, let me try this, see how this goes. You're going by and filling it up at the store from the products that you're making, and then you're kind of like, oh, that did pretty good. And I'll go back and make some more. And then all of a sudden now you're getting a phone call from the store going, listen, man, you're going to have to keep this in stock on the shelf or we got to pull it.
Right.
now the pressure's on, and so what sometimes small businesses think is, if I can just get into here, if I can just break into the market here, they're typically, though, not prepared for the explosion that may potentially happen on the backside. So there is something to be said also about garnering that quality by also controlling the quantity that you're also releasing. Because you were saying earlier, we were talking in pre-show that you were saying that at one point you had to ramp down.
I did.
But it wasn't ramping down because it wasn't ramping down because the demand was just overbearing for you. It was ramping down because the supplies of your materials were becoming unavailable.
Right.
Or at least the turnaround for those supplies was becoming.
Yes. So, and many of my customers know this. So COVID, full-fledged COVID going on, and you can't find bottles anywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's making hand sanitizer or homemade, whatever. Yeah. And so, I mean, my 8-ounce bottles was 15 weeks it took to get bottles. Yeah. And I had supply. I had supplies, but we were depleting, and there was no way for me to replenish it at that point. There was, as I was telling you, there was kind of headhunters for supplies. People were paying outrageous, gouging was going on for supplies, and that's not something that I wanted to have to pass on to my customers. Sure. And it was just ridiculous what they were getting for materials.
Well, and you're in a line of fire in 2 lanes. Number one, and you touched on it, the hand sanitizer deal had to be a huge reason why a lot of it disappears. Right. Not just the fact that you've got businesses that are changing literally. Like, let's take distilleries as a good example. Right. They're changing their business model to go, well, we're not selling tequila, so let's turn it into hand sanitizer. Right. We'll add some aloe vera lotion into our Z tequila over here and throw it out there and see how we can sell it that way. Yeah. And so, but then again, they're not producing in huge glass bottles. Now all of a sudden they need those little small bottles, similar to the ones that you're utilizing. Right. Everybody and their grandma was trying to turn into a sanitizing supplier at some point. Right. Then the materials themselves also, if they're plastic, they're going to typically be petroleum based. Right. So fuel prices go up, cost goes up on bottles. And again, you find yourself as the creator of, I'm trying to keep this cheap and reasonable for my customers and still make it profitable for me to do this. I'm not trying to turn this into a 501(c) nonprofit organization either, that I'm paying for what it is that I'm doing. But I also need to ensure that I can get all of the supplies to meet the demand on the backside here. And so what normally took you said 2 weeks for turnaround to get bottles turned into...
just maybe 2 weeks would be now. I mean, literally, I would order and they would be sent out the next day, maybe. Yeah. So, and then just, 3 days shipping. Yeah.
Depending on where they're coming from.
Right. Turn into 15 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And good luck. Yeah. Literally, I heard that. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, and how many other small businesses, whatever it is that you want to put it into. If you want to put it into, we were talking about like to-go materials for restaurants, right? Like just take something as simple as a styrofoam clamshell that is a to-go clamshell for most businesses. If you have a dine-in process for your restaurant and with no drive-through, and you had to pivot to turn into drive-through because you could no longer do dine-in. Right. Now all of a sudden that business has to go out and has to buy clamshells. And you still have businesses that clamshells is a part of their model because they're doing drive-through, or that's been a part of their model for a long time. But how many businesses had to turn inward to go buy products that then they put the stress on the actual chain of supply there, rip it out of the market? Then you've got those creators of those products going, hey man, like our supply went way down and the demand went way up. You know what this means? We're going up on price. Right. And so prices move up, and it's just like anything else. If it, you'd love to think that most businesses think in the model of, like you're saying, I want my stuff to be reasonable for my customers. And the more you sell, that's really kind of where that ability comes in at. Like, I can do this, but once I reach a certain volume, I've got to either add a body, I've got to add some type of equipment, I've got to add more supply on the backside.
Right.
I've got to store stuff now that I normally didn't have to do. And so now I'm almost working like credit ahead, where I've got to keep all of this stuff on hand at all times so I don't run out. And I'm trying not to pass that along. Or you can be like the clamshell maker that's going, hey man, can't keep it in stock.
Yeah.
You want it, extra quarter a piece.
And that's kind of, and I hate to be a hoarder, but after this experience with that, I kind of thought more of, hey, I really need to have, keep this many bottles for sure. Yeah. And not only, the 15 weeks, of course, like everybody else, businesses were closed down. Mm-hmm. People went remote, just like when I'm calling for my oils or my bottles, they're in, skeleton crews at their warehouses. They're pulling orders as quick as they can. So that part of it was going. Shipping was delayed. Yeah. Things like that. And so it's all the obstacles that everybody else was kind of going through. It's whether or not, I kind of just made that determination. I have customers, of course, they would send them, online, doing some online. Yeah. But my markets are closed down at this point. I mean, nobody's doing markets at all. There's, businesses are closed down. People aren't going in to shop at stores. Right. And so we're kind of in the same boat as everybody else and deciding, okay, what do I need to do to at least keep it, that throttle,
Yeah, you don't want to completely shut the well off.
No. So, keeping that throttle going, but still, realizing that I don't have any control over, I only control what's going on in my little, workshop building.
What I can see.
Mm-hmm. And I'm, hitting my head up against the brick wall, trying to control what's going on with the bottles and the, all the other raw products that I need to make my lotions.
Well, it's why it's so great.
Soaps,
it's why it's so great to sit here at the table and talk through these as business owners is, there was a points for us where, we had customers that were contacting us like, we need hand sanitizer, right? Mm-hmm. And we were getting email after email daily, from companies that just magically like popped up, like, we all of a sudden just became a hand sanitizer place. And we laugh and joke about it here because we said once we hit, I think it was May for us, when I had people asking us like, hey, how's your business going? I'm going, tell everybody, we're a t-shirt and embroidery company that turned into a mask company. Yeah. I mean, our business literally pivoted to masks, and it was hundreds of masks. And we had vendors that could get it to us. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we were able to turn around and provide that back to the customers. But then you think about it from the other way around. We also had those customers who are like, man, if you can get a pallet of sanitizer, I'll take it. Yeah. And so now we're over here like, who's got a pallet of sanitizer? Like, we need it right now. And everybody's like, well, we're X number of weeks out, we're X number of months out, and not even thinking in the standpoint of the holdup is bottles and being able to, for some people it was bottles, for other businesses it was just the ability to mass produce it, that they didn't have systems in place or production line systems in place to produce it in those kind of quantities. It was never intended for that. Kind of like a restaurant that never had a drive-through, and then all of a sudden you're trying to do drive-through. You're not going to do it well. Right. You're going to have to learn a system, and you're going to have to figure out what works for you. And so you're in that boat where everybody's gravitating. You can't find a bottle of hand sanitizer to save your life. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, those bottles that are in the market are all scooped up by these new companies, and probably even existing companies are like, we'll take whatever bottles you can get us, because they couldn't get their hands on bottles. And the ripple effect through there, nobody's over there thinking, man, I wonder how this is affecting the lotion business. Yeah. Everybody and their grandma was talking about sanitizer, and that was all the focus was on that. Right. And antibacterial wipes and sprays and toilet paper and paper towels and but nobody looked at, again, the long reach impact on that. So when we hear a business that's in here that says, look, I was impacted by this, by no choice of my own, I didn't have a place that I could go to. And even if you did probably have a solid vendor that you could have gotten it from, they're going to look at it and go, okay, well, we could sell 150, 200 bottles over here to Louella, or we could sell 100,000 bottles over here to this particular Purell company that wants all of our bottles, and they're willing to buy it at this, you know? And so, and a company would look at that and say, okay, I'll take a couple of cents less to sell 100,000 than to take a few cents more and sell 1,000, you know? So, and you've got companies that are wheeling and dealing through this whole event. And so you throttle back, and then you now kind of, again, I guess a lot of people learned a lot of hard learning lessons through the process of COVID. And so now you're kind of like, now that those things are kind of back in the market here, I'm going to make sure I've got a few cases of this or some extra stock of this or whatever. You went offline really at one point.
Yes.
And so due to COVID, but you also had, like, there were some personal things going on as well too, that kind of focused your attention. And so you had to kind of dial everything down to take care of your family. And then that was November, October?
November. Yes. So my husband has cancer, so we kind of pulled back. It was Christmas time, but you know, thankfully my customers were all very understanding, and markets, and just you know, doing online sales, doing some drop-offs, people, you know, coming, getting, you know, kind of those kind of things. So just kind of focusing on family and kind of figuring out what was, you know, medically where we kind of were at, you know. He needed care. He needed full-time care when he got home. So very unexpected, obviously. So just kind of doing that, and kind of moving forward, trying to, you know, as best you can, you know. And
your world is in a tailspin at this point. And you've got this pull from all these directions. Like, I've worked to build this customer relationship with these people who trust me and trust my product. And I don't want to let them down. But I also know my family's first here in this equation as well too.
It's hard, you know, because you know, I got, which I'd been waiting a market to be in for like 2 years. And not kidding, the day this happened with him, I got an email from them saying, hey, you want to come join us? And I was like, oh my God, you know, like, come on, really? You know? And I mean, so things like that. And, you know, at that point, and online, I was doing 3 to 4 markets a week. I had, you know, a couple stores going at that point. And so it's like, whoa, you know, and luckily, I mean, you know, Lake Walk and the local have been fantastic. You know, my other markets have been fantastic. The stores have been fantastic, and supportive, and, you know, orders came in still, and, you know, especially for Christmas, and, you know, going and buying at the stores. If they couldn't get me, they were, you know, shopping at the stores and making sure that that was happening for me. So I do appreciate that. And so we just kind of trying to get back into it, but still, you know, it's ongoing health stuff going on. So kind of dabbled, you know, I'm not back at the local full-time like I was. I'd always been a full-time vendor. So, but still wanting to be a part of that, be a part of the community here.
I mean, you were ready for the jump. I mean, we had contacted with each other about scheduling you for the podcast, and you're like, I'm sorry, I've got to kind of push this down, and I'll reach back to you and kind of talk about this all later on down the road, which is where we're at today. But during that time frame, you're trying to shore up the home front, not lose the business that you've been working towards building. But the interesting part, and I think this is again where local really comes into play, and local vendors that are creating a business line of stuff comes into play, is when people know that you sell a great product, but then they also know that a part of the reason the struggle is there because financially there's some things also pulling on the backside. There's time that's being taken away. Not only are they more understanding, in a lot of cases, man, they come almost to your rescue. You know, like they're out there like, hey, I know I normally buy like 2 or 3 of these, but I'd like to buy 10 this time, you know, and in their mind, they're going, I know that my money that I'm giving here is not just going towards a great product line that I've been using, but it's also going to go to help her with all these other things that are going on right now with her family.
And I got lots of support from other vendors too. I
Sure.
mean, just, trying to, hey, let me put your soaps on my table. Even though they're my competitors,
Yeah,
even my competitors,
sure.
which
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, but just loving, just very giving. And vendors, businesses and vendors going and shopping and, hey, you're like half my Christmas stocking, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and what's crazy is the market. While there's certain things, certain lines of products that are unique to the market, there's also lines of products that are saturated in a market.
Right.
But what is funny there is that's really where quality separates, but there's always room for everybody. Like
Right.
there's no such thing as like, when you talk about people making their own soaps, like I was saying, and things like that, there's going to be another 50 people that are doing it, and
Right.
maybe they don't have a storefront, or maybe they're word of mouth only their friends know about it or whatever. But it's not like, as a business you're sitting out there going, I have to have all of this business.
Right, right.
It's here's what I need in order to pay for what I'm doing.
Right.
Here's what I need in order to pay for what I'm doing and pay my bills. Here's what I need in order to pay for what I'm doing, pay my bills, set up for future growth. I mean, there's these levels of what financially you need in order to be able to take care of your business and insulate it. And then there's also that level that you go, if I can get to X, then I can buy a new this,
Right.
or a new spot for this, or even in some cases for most businesses who started out in their home, they now go, okay, there's enough demand and I'm doing enough here that I can now go full storefront with my name on the outside of it.
Yeah.
And this becomes the go-to location. And I can envision that I can be putting all lines of products in here, and potentially a lot of those businesses, I've got one in particular I'm thinking of that she was doing cups and tumblers and things out of her own place. She decides, I'm going to go ahead and do a storefront. She, sits down and talks to me, and we kind of talk through the logistics of it. And I'd been obviously in business for a long time at that point, and she's starting up and going, I really kind of want to know what you think about all of this. And then we sit down and really talk about true numbers. Like, let's talk about what you got to make doing this to pay your rent, to pay your lights, pay your water. And then you still got to be able to have enough to buy new materials and new supplies to be able to continue this process. And when we start putting it on paper, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
She starts looking at it like, whoa, like, yeah, that's a lot,
Yeah.
But she didn't go into it blindly. She didn't go into it just going, oh, it's going to be awesome. She went into it with a smart plan of like, okay, if I know that these are things I'm going to do, I got to be careful not to grow too fast, or to go get that new machine or this new that I know will help me produce more, because I got to make sure that more is going to be the demand.
Right.
Not that I just load it all in with the brand newest this or the fastest that, that I need to make sure that I grow smart so that I can continue the process a little build at a time. And I use this as the example on that. We put this building together and we probably got too big too fast. It looked great and it was greatly expensive. And so you've got to be on the front side of that. For us, we had what we thought was going to come, and then there was what came.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at that and you're like, man, if we could do this again, now that we've already built it, now that we're committed to it, we would have built a little bit smaller. We would have gone a little bit slower in. Now, where would we be today? It's hard to say. I mean, because we kind of sucked it up and just kind of like, oh, we got to eat this and just keep plugging away at it. And we were fortunate enough that plugging away got us around the backside of it. But for a lot of businesses, a lot of them they don't necessarily test that market real well, and they jump completely in, go fully blown overboard. Maybe they did that in January, February last year, and then boom, here comes COVID, and that wasn't anywhere in a business plan model anywhere in the United States. And now all of a sudden you're going to find out how good of a business person you really are, how much your product really matters. Is it something that's essential? One of my favorite words here.
Right.
And so if you survived COVID and were able to maintain and pay your bills and everything else, well, congratulations, because there were a lot of businesses that weren't able to do that. There were a lot of businesses that tested their financial stability. It tested their compass of integrity, where they want to do the right things for their community, but they also are like, I got to make money, and those two things intersect with each other. Businesses that have created their brand by keeping an integrity in that brand and then trusting the market to support and prop them up, you don't want to compromise that at the expense of $1. And I think that's kind of where you're at with your stuff. You're like, I could charge more. The market justifies that I can charge more, but that's not my goal here. My goal is I feel like I can get more customers hooked on my product just by experience, as opposed to, by the idea that, if I take this up $1, if I take this up 50 cents, if I charge another $2 or $3 in shipping, that in some cases, a lot of people on the backside, free shipping. When you talk about a vendor that does free shipping, especially small business, I mean, that's unique in and of itself. But a lot of the times the shipping is not fully covered.
No, it's not.
And the vendor is the one that is usually eating it,
Yes.
And so they have a choice. Listen, I can provide a product to you and give you free shipping and make you feel great. Like, well, Amazon does free shipping. Well, I can do free shipping too, but the cost of my goods just went up about $8, because I got to cover the expense of that being sent out. Small businesses also are in that pocket of, perception becomes really important. For, unfortunately, a lot of folks, convenience really falls into a Walmart, an Amazon, something online that can deliver directly to their front door, that convenience factor. And you're fighting the 500-pound gorilla over there that has all of the weight and all of the resources, that works against the smaller locations that don't have that buying power. They don't have the ability to lower their shipping costs down to something that's manageable. They maybe don't have an online presence. Maybe their online presence either hasn't materialized or they haven't thought it through. I mean, if you didn't have an online presence for your goods going into COVID where nobody could go out, it's probably a safe bet you weren't selling a whole lot of stuff, especially if it was an in-person purchase for everything. And it maybe worked great on an in-person purchase, but a lot of businesses, as a part of their pivot, went in and created an online experience of having those products available quickly because they realized, I'm not going to get them face to face.
Right.
They told me 2 weeks. It's been 2 months. They told me 2 months. It's been 6 months. And so
I think a lot of, like you said, being in a market. I mean, I have a lot of vendor friends that maybe did parties.
Yeah.
Store parties or did demos or, things like that. That was their money makers.
Yeah.
And that just went out the window because everything's closed down, you know? So you do. You have to
and you have a product that needs, in some cases, like when you're sitting at that vendor table at a location that needs that sample.
Right.
Let me pump this into your hand. Let me squeeze this in. Tell me what you think.
Yeah. And that got to a point too, though. I mean, everybody was stopping, even when we came back after COVID, no samples. So then you got to be creative. Okay, how am I going to make the sample? So I used to just have my pumps out and you could try whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
That has ended. So I actually now just use the little mini muffin cups, squirt, and here you go. And that's how I was able to bypass it. But people had to be creative to still be able to have the customers smell it, taste, touch it, whatever, they needed that. So,
well, and you still got to buy the little sample pieces that you weren't buying.
That I wasn't
buying before.
That I wasn't buying before. But you got to think about, okay, how am I going to, but even sample, just samples, cups that I would normally hand out to people.
Yeah.
Non-existent, people are using it for other things, so yeah, just becoming very creative, especially going back into this. And in certain areas that I was at markets, it became impossible to be part of those areas because of restrictions. That people were not allowed to shop they were allowed to come pick up and leave.
Yeah.
So you had to really depend on your regulars.
Yeah.
Because those people that normally don't go to that farmer's market don't know what you have, can't smell it, can't,
Yeah.
They're told to get in and get out.
Yeah. Try and virtual a bar of soap,
isn't working,
No, I mean, and again, but it forces the business model to change. Now, for businesses that survived, if we went round 2 again or whatever, at least they'd have a better roadmap. And at this point, everybody was flying blind, and they were all trying to figure out, like, how can I continue to keep my business operational here? Like, it's one thing to sell something that's physical, doesn't smell, you can snap a picture of it and people can see it. Mm-hmm. But if it's got a smell, touch, taste, that's probably somewhere in those lines, man, you're not going to sell that virtually to new customers. No. You're going to sell it maybe to some existing customers that know about it and that are raving about it or whatever. But again, if you didn't build that customer base and you closed down for COVID, again, you're right back in that. You become a really creative marketing genius if you survived it. And actually in some cases were able to grow it. Right. Because you had to find new avenues of doing things. I saw more and more friends that did like Facebook Live videos to sell like jewelry and things along those lines, just so that they could keep that market moving for themselves. And then after COVID, really the restrictions started lifting, that became their go-to model.
Right.
It was kind of like, okay, I'm just not going to go to the storefront. I'm just going to do it here, and I'll do it virtually, and I'll build a base with my customers to say I'm going to do it twice a week on Tuesday and Friday nights at 8:00. Tune in, and I'll do this, and I'll do a giveaway. And it's changed the business model in general for most businesses. Most businesses had to figure out new ways. Like you had said earlier, you got to get creative in order to figure out ways to work around it, and where you're sitting over there, like there are signs up that say, don't touch this, and, don't grab any of this. And then if you're on the backside of it, if I'm the owner of the local, then I'm over there also going, I don't want to be COVID breakout central.
Right.
I want everybody to do well. I want businesses to do well. I want people to be able to come in and use this space. But I also don't want to be on KBTX,
right?
Having Rusty Surratt shoving a microphone into my face and asking how this came to be,
right?
And so businesses again, and I think some businesses did a good job of bouncing back and forth between each other, like in these Facebook groups and things like that. The communication between those really helped businesses evolve as well too, like. People that were sending private messages through a Facebook group and going, hey, have you thought about doing this? Or here's maybe what I've done that will maybe help you in passing that along. You get to see those small local businesses almost kind of lock and chain with each other to be able to pull each other along through the process as well. Yeah. And I mean, and even if that was somebody sitting there saying like, I've got a pretty good following, how would you like to maybe do a virtual,
I did giveaways collaborated with giveaways with different businesses during this time, and putting my products in and us sharing and tagging each other and just kind of trying to pull other vendors that are kind of in the same struggle as I was with business and where the markets were at,
Well, who would ever come to think that like a BCS Meals and Deals with 28,000 people on the page would be one of the greatest advertisements for local restaurants?
Yeah.
But it came to be because it had to come to be. It couldn't just turn around and be. That would not have grown by itself organically. It would have taken an event to be able to turn around to make that happen. And that event occurred, and now all of a sudden here we are with somebody who comes up with the idea, and they're out there, hey, we want restaurants to put up on here what your daily specials are. And I'm going to say, what's your daily special for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? And then boom, that thing blows up. I heard about more restaurants out of that place than I'd ever heard in my life being here in College Station. But it also turned and kept a lot of businesses afloat,
right?
Where they were able to do that and interchain with other businesses as well too. So 2021, you ramp back up now, and you're trying to kind of get back into the swing of things. We know that regulations are kind of starting to dissipate, and you're starting to see gatherings starting to come back. Vaccinations are getting back into the market. People are starting to get vaccinated, feel more comfortable about going out. Mm-hmm. We were talking about, we just went out this weekend and talking about graduations for A&M and how many people were out and how many people came to town. And again, at this time last year, there was nothing. It was all virtual, right. And so it's good to see all those people coming back. And I'm sure even in your world, as you go back into these farmers markets and local and places like that, where you're putting your product back out and seeing people physically come to the table, you're now no longer under the restrictions of, let me give you this little cup and do it this way.
I still, actually, a lot of them are still keeping those restrictions. I just did City of College Station had Northgate event we had a while back. So we just did that, and that was really nice. It was Parents' Weekend, and kind of, that was a nice weekend. It was a good weekend. Yeah. It was a really great event, and I'm glad College Station is really trying to get a lot of those kind of events going. Yeah. Maybe quarterly is my understanding. So that's awesome to kind of see, students out, the parents out, people out shopping. I'm seeing a huge push, of course, open air events. Yeah. People want to be outside. They want to. I know, just talking with the folks at the local is, this time, last year before COVID, we didn't really, we had, it was a nice market. I always do well there, but it wasn't really a huge amount of people out. And we came back from COVID, and I was like, where's all these people from? All the students, especially. Yeah. And at POV, at their coffee shop, you see it. I mean, it's packed out, and they're studying, and they're outside at the tables at the, at the Stella Hotel. They're, everybody's everywhere. Yeah. They're out, by the, the fountain, and out in the open spaces that are there that we have our market. Yeah. And they had to get creative. Now they're not, stuck in a dorm, or, they got to be somewhere where they have more space, more open air, less restriction, so that area is, Lake Walk is really, really grown.
Well, and you can see the natural evolution of volume of people coming back, whether you're at a restaurant. My wife and I went to Austin, which you didn't think of all places in Texas that would, be on the other end of the spectrum. We went out and we were on Lady Bird, running the trail. Yeah. And I'm looking at my wife like, is there a race going on here or something? There are a lot of people out here. And my wife's like, I don't know. And there wasn't a race. It was just the fact that people hadn't been outside in so long. The weather was beautiful. It just come off of like 2 days of rain. Right. And everybody just wanted to be out in the open air. And I think people have a greater appreciation of that now, and the ability for them to have more events that are now getting them out into the open. I know that I think it was the first Friday for downtown Bryan wasn't like hugely packed. I think it was kind of that test of like people kind of coming out like, I don't know how many people are going to be out here. Yeah. But then the first Friday after they reopened back up, it was slammed down there. Yeah. For people everywhere. Yeah. And you're starting to see venues open back up down there, music events that are starting to happen, people that are doing specials around that time frame for First Friday. And again, the people are coming to those areas because of, I think it's multiple areas. I think it's the comfortability of where they think everything is at with COVID. But I also think it's the idea of like, man, I've been cooped up long enough. It's time for me to live my life here as well too. Right. And so being in the right place at the right time at the right event, again, is huge for you. Right. And so, and again, that collaboration piece as well too is partnering with people who have a storefront or have a place where you don't necessarily have to be at a table right in front. Give me a little corner, a little spot. I'll load some stuff in there. Just tell me what you think. I mean, what's the worst case scenario for you? Worst case scenario is you got to come pick it all back up. Right. And you didn't sell a single thing. Right. Right. Best case scenario is you created a partnership with someone who wants you in there, because what's the possibility of you bringing a customer in that wasn't their customer, right, that they buy your product and then become their customer, right. Or even if that point of like, listen, I'll give you X of whatever I sell, right, to display it in your store or whatever. I mean, those kind of collaborations will be important for businesses to relaunch back up, or even in some cases to come to market, because maybe they're not able, after going through a COVID year, to have a storefront or to have, an overflowing amount of product to be able to put out in front of a customer. But if they can get a little test location and be able to just kind of, dip that toe into the water to see if that interest is still there for their product, and do that in a collaboration with a business that's willing to support them as well too, that becomes important for both of those businesses. Those collaborations can essentially be a springboard for a company to start its own storefront, but it can also be a collaboration long-term between those two businesses to start something that didn't even exist.
Right. During this time, one of the partnerships that I got involved with, it's called Natural Selection, and it's your farmer's market to your door.
Interesting.
And so they went around selecting different areas, different farmers markets, different vendors. Mm-hmm. And so they they buy samples from you, or things that, sell products. They buy the products. They have subscription boxes that they bring to the door, and you actually are able to try different types of products every month. And that was a brand new business. He launched during COVID.
Wow.
But just getting that started, so that helps him. That's his business. I'm in with a bunch of different vendors. You go through and you pick kind of the things that you may want to try.
Sure.
It's not every month, as far as you're not going to get my product every month in your box.
Right.
You're going to get to try my product this month.
Right.
And then
But that could lead them to your site.
But they get a bio sheet of my company, and then that's where I get customers off of.
Website.
So being creative, you know, and then they can go on my website and see, hey, she's going to be here that week if I want to go to see her at the market, or I can order online. Yeah. So that was something brand new for me. It's something different. Yeah. But I think, and it's nice because it may, it's here College Station, but it's also a little broader area because he's more involved in Houston, Cypress area. So extending my area and my customer base.
Well, and learning, how much business am I getting out of that particular line?
Right.
If you have a landing page they can go to, or you can track who's coming back to you from that to go, is this worth my time and effort and money? Is it not? But again, it is testing a bunch of waters in unknown territories right now of where we're at. So going through the COVID year, which, good, bad, and ugly for you. And now we're into 2021 and things are starting to ramp back up. Where do you see the company going this year?
So, as you know, we're in a very rural area of Grimes County. And happily, we're part of the Mid-South high-speed internet's coming in.
There you go.
Take so those this has pigeons, been a transition
those internet pigeons out there that you got.
So that has been a huge challenge for my company. Is we run off a hotspot at my house.
Yeah, faster than the dial-up satellite, whatever.
My people laugh at me, but it's the truth. We had Centerlink, and they had their box across my road, and every month we have gravel road, and every month the grader would cut the line to the phone and the internet, everything, and I'd have to call them out every month. So it got to the point where they were offering to put a pole up on the other side of the road and run my wire across our road for us, and I said, forget it. So I'm happy Mid-South has actually brought the internet fiber onto our property, so hopefully by the end of the summer. So that has been a challenge because some of the things I would like to be better. Yeah. And that's one of them. That aspect of it has been a challenge for me. So right now I'm in 5 stores, and I want to continue with the markets. I'm doing some special events. We're going to kind of take a break this summer for some family time, but doing online and doing the stores, I want to make sure, and I'm always available. My customers know that. Message me. Right. I'm here. This is where I shop. Right. This is where I go out to eat. I'm at least twice a week in College Station area. So that is not, I'm always around. So, and I've done home, porch drop-offs was a big thing too. I had to pivot to during COVID is, people didn't want to, meet up. They didn't want to have things mailed. People didn't know what was going on.
Can you sanitize that before you throw it to me?
And I did. Yeah. I mean, we had all kinds of situations going on. So, so I'm always open to doing that. But now happily I'm at the Village, so that's going to be huge for my customers to kind of grab what they need.
Well, and for customers knowing that you try to, as well, with the money that you're creating from the company, push that money back into your community.
Right.
Sponsoring events, programs, things that you have that's near and dear to your heart that you want to be a good corporate sponsor of as well, too.
Right.
And so that money also is going back into the community as well. But they're also supporting somebody, again, small business. They know there's a struggle on the home front that they're trying to help out as well with that. They know that they're buying a product that, again, quality control for you is extremely important and backed up by your name and your company's name on it. Right. So they're investing really in you and in your customer base that will grow your future company. So as they see the product, see, touch, feel, smell, all the other stuff that goes along with it, they have the ability to be that customer long term that says, I remember when Louella was like this small and this, and now all of a sudden she's all over the place, which is, again, most entrepreneurs' business dream to get in. It's one thing to own your own business and run it and do all those other things and, quote, be your own boss.
Right.
But there's also prices to be paid for all of that as well, too. Getting big is great. But I tell people all the time, we're the number 2 screen printing and embroidery company in Bryan College Station, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be number 1 because number 1 is going to come with a lot more headaches. And my concern would be, could we do number 1 well enough and still incorporate that customer connection that we build really well at number 2 that number 1 doesn't? That's where, for us, the rubber meets the road. It's more important for us to build relationships with our customers and have return customers who, when they walk in the door, we know them by name. Right. We know their family. We know Johnny had a baseball game. How'd he do? He batted third. I mean, our customers come in enough. We get, 3-4 visits with them. We're going to know a lot more about them and be able to interact with them on a different level than just, now serving number 34.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of turnover in our company, so that also helps us in building those relationships as well, too. And that's really valuable when you're talking about that from the customer perspective. If I hook you up with one of our reps, it's important that that's your rep.
Right.
Not that, that was my rep for 2 years and now we changed. I'm going to figure out this new girl that's taken over and she don't know anything about me. So we put value in building relationships, much like most small businesses do. They understand that every single customer matters, and every single customer is a positive review or a negative review for them. Every single customer is a positive referral or a negative referral. They have the ability to make or break you one customer at a time. And so when you treat that customer the way you'd want to be treated, as an individual that's purchasing a product from someone, no matter if that product is $3 or $300, you just want to know that your money was valued and that you were valued as a customer in that. So small businesses do a great job at that. That's really the separation in small business to corporate business. In corporate business, it's bam, bam, hey, what are you doing standing over here? Let's get back to work, man. We got stuff to do over here, and in small business, it's, I got work to do, and I'm probably the one that got to do it, but I also want to get to know about you. I want to know about this customer that's going to come in, and I want to be able to know the next time you come in that I try to remember your name or I try to remember your company or whatever.
Well, and you get to know, like for me, it's, if, say they're dealing with eczema or dealing with, dandruff issues, hey, blah, 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 I just had a lady, which gave me a great idea. Well, I might explore it. She's originally from Mexico, and she's been buying my shampoo bars and just blown away. Well, she's sending some back home to Mexico, and she's just kind of like, hey, this would be something that would do really well in my country. And,
interesting.
her mom's visiting and taking them back with her, several of them. And so, but that's like, she's like, hey, it's, my hair is not, I don't have white flakes and people thinking, what the heck's going on with her, you know? I mean, things like that. So you get to know their stories.
Yeah. And it's personal for you.
It's personal because I'm like, yes, I did that. It's working, and I feel good about that.
And not just that, you can feel their pain because you've lived it.
Yeah,
you've lived it, and it's easy to understand those wins. Right. When they come through, they're almost like a personal win for you vicariously through someone else.
Well, and I get a lot of times. In fact, after I leave here, I have a delivery, so it's hey, I got this 2-year-old, and what do you recommend? I don't know what to do. We're kind of at, what's working, or what do you think, And granted, like I say, I'm not a doctor, but this is what's worked for us.
Sure.
This is what I use.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe it's not going to work, but it's something natural, and I feel comfortable, and it's safe, and, people like it, and they use it, and they keep coming back, and that's what I appreciate. The as a small business, the support that you get. They see my quirky videos, my goat videos, and hey, look, we have triplets today, And last spring I was laughing because I was all the time on the internet with the goats videos, and I'm like, I really do work. I'm not just sitting here watching the goats all the time,
Yeah, or you can just create a TikTok video that my daughter's going to want to see somewhere down the road. I know,
she might like it. But yeah, so, but I'll have them ask about if there's an illness, or even our family, just things. They'll go, hey, how's so-and-so, or how's your daughter doing, or how's your husband doing, or, you just build relationships, and that's key.
Well, and it's one at a time. And so if there's one thing that I could tell our listeners who are listening to the podcast today when it comes to small businesses, outside of obviously frequenting the local businesses and spending your money and keeping that money local, the other thing that you can do, it doesn't cost you a dime, is if you like the product, if you've enjoyed the service, if you had an experience that was above your expectation, leave a review. Go back, go to a Facebook page, go to a Google review page, and leave the review. I just posted a deal in BCS Meals and Deals where I had a pretty eye-opening conversation with a local business person here. We were talking about call to actions for business, and how do you use your customers for your call to action? And I thought about that for a little bit, and the BCS Meals and Deals was kind of one of those deals where every day you can go in there and say, Paisanos is doing this, and all these businesses you get to see. And I just kind of went in there and just typed and said, you know what? Here's what I'd encourage everybody to do. Today, why don't you tag 3 businesses in this post? And it ain't for me. I'm not getting anything out of this. Tag 3 businesses in this post so that people can click and go to them from seeing this, this posting on here. But then go to those 3 businesses' Google review page and leave them a positive review. And so if those are the 3 that you frequented this, COVID, this summer, this whatever, maybe it's a brand new business that opened up and you really liked it, tag them in here and then go leave the review. And I put my 3 that were in there, went and left my 3 reviews in there, and I know other people were doing the same thing. But that's long-term, long-lasting effects for a business. I think that's where people miss that. Is yes, you can spend that money. Somebody can come to you and buy that $5 bar of soap or whatever, but ultimately, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the $5 bar of soap and they return again and they buy another $5 and I realize that that's important? Or would you rather go, use my soap, and if you really liked it, tell people about it on my Google review?
That's what I tell people, because you don't, like the shampoo bars or any of the products.
Yeah.
If you love it and you're, I tell people that, they'll go, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I love reviews, because it may be the same person dealing with the same situation that you are that says, hey, you know what? Maybe it's worth my $6 to go buy our soap or whatever. And, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work for me. Yeah. And I try to do that with, small businesses, all businesses, but, if they're starting out or they're, kind of trying to pick up some clientele, that's something that they're going to appreciate. They're going to appreciate that review, and tell them what they're doing, and what you appreciate out of them, especially small businesses.
Yeah, if you manage people, one of the things I used to say is you emphasize the positive and you mention the negative, right? That really is the same thing when it comes to a small business, especially if you have people that work underneath you. And again, like we were talking about, we'd always hope that everybody who works underneath us has the same passion and the same level of expectation, of the business and how they produce and how they perform that you do when you own the business. And you got to grow those people into those roles. But at that same point, let's say that expectation doesn't get met. Before you go in there and blow them up on a Google review, call, get in contact with the owner or with the manager or whoever's responsible that day. Let them know what happened. Let them give them an opportunity to make it right with you before you just go out and just, I had a horrible experience, because those reviews become valuable. They stick, like you can't remove, most people are maybe under the assumption, like if you do business with us and you had a terrible experience and you go blow me up on my Facebook page, I can't review that. I can't say delete and take that off of there. It's on there.
Right.
And I can write into Facebook and I can say, listen, this lady was really pissy today and didn't have a good day and she decided to blow me up and this really isn't a fair review. Well, Google's going to go, sorry for your, or Facebook, whoever, sorry for your luck. It's hard to prove a disingenuous or false, phony review. Hard to prove. And it takes an act of Congress to get social media companies to move on that, to remove it. So it sits there.
Right.
And it ticks you down from 5 to 4.5 to 4 to 3.5. But it is also the thing that if you know you have a great product and you know that you're giving your customers great experiences, then you see 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 5.0 at 100 reviews, 200 reviews. Right. And now all of a sudden those customers that are in the market that are looking for that will use that review potentially as a swinging, pendulum to go, well, I was going to buy from over here, but this one's 5.0 and they got 200 reviews on here. So they're doing something right. And that becomes their deal.
Well, it's nothing different than we would do, right? If I'm looking for something, I'm looking at how many reviews they have.
Yep, absolutely.
And look at the reviews and what their ratings were.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get into like an Amazon and stuff like that. I get a little nervous in Amazon because some of those vendors that are in there buy those reviews, meaning, hey, I'll send you this for free if you'll give us X.
Right.
And then there's kind of this little backside agreement.
And that's the thing with me that I've been pretty adamant about. I do know vendors that do offer, hey, if you leave me a review, I'll give you so much off, or I'll give you a freebie, this or that.
Absolutely.
All my reviews are my reviews.
Nice.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I want you to, out of the goodness of your heart and your belief in my products, to review me honestly. And so
if I lived up to your expectations, say it.
I don't give perks to get my reviews or so much off my products or put you in a drawing. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. And if you can be descriptive in that review, that'd probably be the other piece. Don't just be the reviewer that just goes in there and goes, click 5 stars, submit.
Right.
And that's all they see. Try and go in there and be a little bit more encouraging, with the words that you're using or whatever. Tried this product. It was great. Had this issue. It cleaned it up for me. You can do a lot of things in those reviews that cost you nothing, virtually cost you your, 5 minutes of your time to go in there and review. But it is gold to small business owners to have those reviews continuing to cycle in. So again, if you can do that, we want to encourage people to do that as well too, for these small businesses that are trying to recover, and to understand that while your input is valuable, your opinions are valuable, good, bad, and ugly, let's say bad and ugly goes to the manager, the owner, to see if it's something that they can maybe change your mind on after they get an opportunity to fix it.
Right.
And then good goes directly in, and you talk about the experience that you had.
Right.
So let's give everybody an opportunity, if they need to reach back to you, how they can get a hold of you. So I'll make sure I get all this right. I put this in front of me for sure. So again, Louella Leblanc. Triple L Glamour Goat Company. And you can reach her website at Glamour, that's GLAMOUR, goatcompany.com. Email address, LLGlamourGoatCompany@gmail.com, or they can reach you by phone at 936-931-7489.
Yes.
And you'll definitely take care of them. Get them.
We are on Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely, with pictures of Austin on the back of the
donkey.
the donkey.
Margarita.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So, well, we wish you the best of luck. And again, I'm glad that we got an opportunity to finally get together and talk about your company a little bit. I appreciate you just bringing by a little sample. Probably won't go for me, it'll go for my wife. But I'll definitely give you feedback on it and let you know what she says about it. And
ladies like the cowboy up also. It's a popular one.
all right.
And that actually was a market. That was a drawing I did. And that's what I like to do is like, hey, you're my whatever number, I'm doing a drawing, or name my new lotion.
Oh, interesting.
And that was a customer. She ended up winning that. I picked her, and she won a basket.
And again, great business owners still keep their ear to the ground to listen to the feedback that comes back. And a lot of the times there are things that come back that you can act on and react on in order to potentially, it may create a new line of product for you that you didn't even think about. So we're just grateful to have you in the community, grateful that your business was able to survive and continue forward. I'm glad to hear that it's getting back off the ground again.
Yes.
I've heard great things about your product. Can't wait to get it in front of my wife so she can try it. And we're just appreciative of you spending time with us coming in. And if there's anything you need from us, anything we can do for you, by all means, please stretch out.
Right.
Again, what we've got in front of you, hopefully, is people who are going to give you an opportunity to show them exactly what it is that you put into the expectations of your products, and then hopefully they get to experience exactly what you, your daughter, your friends and family, your other customers that have been using this for a while, that what all they're ranting and raving about is all good.
Awesome.
So that they can basically turn around.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you so much.
Right.
Have a great day. Guys, we appreciate you joining us. Have a great day.